Hi, welcome back to Two Dudes Talking Motorcycles. My name is Mitch. You can find me on Instagram at Meets to the Beach.
And I am Gleb, and you can find me on Instagram at GlebLapham.
Yep, and then we also have our podcast socials as well. We have the Instagram is tdtmotorcycles at tdtmotorcycles. We have our email tdtmotorcycles@gmail.com, and our YouTube channel is Two Dudes Talking Motorcycles.
Two Dudes Talking Motorcycles. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, advice, or feedback, feel free to email us at
those,
or leave comments and everything else. Feel free to DM us on social media. Today, we have a pretty interesting topic, and we are going to be talking about the history of MotoGP. I've been really enjoying these kind of history episodes because I feel like I'm learning a lot about motorcycles and also the world of motorcycling outside of just street bikes, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, doing research on this one, I'm thinking I actually might have found something to follow. Maybe I'll even get I don't know what TV pass you'd have to get to watch this, because I'm kind of interested now.
Yeah, that's how I felt about when we did Dakar.
Yeah,
and I was watching the their daily highlights of the race and stuff. I was like, okay, this is actually pretty cool.
Yep,
it's pretty cool.
This is a good time for us to talk about it because it's starting in 2 weeks, March 10th.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and it starts off not in America.
No,
it starts off.
It starts
elsewhere. I don't remember where though.
So it's going to be in Qatar starting on March 10th, and it's going until November.
And it will be passing through America down in Austin at the Circuit of the Americas on April
12th through the 14th. And I found this out today as we were wrapping up, getting this episode ready. Tickets aren't that very expensive for general admission. They're starting at, for a 3-day pass was starting at $107.
That's pretty good price.
And then for a 1-day pass, $85.
Yeah, that's not bad. So if you're in the Austin area, if you do go attend it, feel free to shoot us an email and let us know what you think.
Please.
It'd be probably pretty cool to watch in person. Seeing those bikes go by, it's those look pretty awesome.
I mean, frankly, I was even just thinking about it before we started too. It's if I could even just get permission to work remote for a while, it's not that expensive. If I could find a cheap flight there and a cheap place to stay, that might be kind of cool.
It would be kind of cool. But before we jump into our main topic, we're gonna go over just a little bit of news. We did get to go watch the new film from BDR. For those of you that aren't familiar,
NorCal, right?
NorCal, yeah. So for those of you that aren't familiar, BDR is the Backcountry Discovery Routes. If you are a adventure rider, dirt rider, and stuff, you're probably familiar. They are this collection of routes in various states around the country. And this, I think, are they a nonprofit? This company?
I'm not sure.
Well, the BDR, the Backcountry Discovery Route group, they basically go out and they map these routes out. They're a combination of mostly off-road, but also a little bit of on-road or paved routes through various states. And they just released their documentary for the Northern California Backcountry Discovery Route.
Yeah, so now it's now attached to Oregon.
Yeah.
So
basically, with this route now being plotted out, you can follow the routes all the way from the Mexican border in Southern California all the way up to
Canada now.
Canada,
right?
yeah, because they go through Washington and Oregon. So it was a pretty cool film to watch. I thought it was just interesting to see how they just to see this route that they created, and some of those passes that they go through, and they're pretty gnarly and way above my level of riding that I'm comfortable with.
Yeah, and you have to and part of the BDR stuff, they have it sectioned out. You have I don't know if they call it beginner, but there's there's basic, intermediate, advanced, and technical and stuff like that. So they have different ratings for each section of the road, so that way you can plan accordingly. It's I'm not ready for advanced or intermediate even. I can go around it and
skip it.
Yeah. So that's for safety.
And remember them showing off a lot of optional routes and stuff that they did on those. Yeah. And they were riding, there was a couple of KTMs on the route. There was a Husqvarna.
Yeah, there was a Husqvarna.
2-0 motorcycles. They were one of the sponsors of the route, and then BMW, which I think have been sponsoring these routes for years now, because I think pretty much all of them have at least a big old GS. And I thought it was just kind of cool seeing that one of this giant GS motorcycle heading up this rocky
like a 20-degree or more hill.
Yeah. Just like it's kind of amazing what people can do like with those big bikes and with that much weight.
No, it was really cool. And then like, like I said, it just kind of reinvigorated my interest to want to go and, take an off-road class because I want to be more confident, and get better with it. And, I'd like to hit some of those roads, What makes me jealous, here's our, mandatory shit talk on Utah. It's just like we don't have like off-roads like that. Like they're all gravelly and just nasty. Like they're hard to find because they have like some nice dirt roads.
There's a few around here that I've found.
Not many.
Yeah, they're kind of like far out of the way to get to and stuff. And we haven't ridden off-road much in southern Utah where we might be able to find a bit more packed down roads. But here in the mountains, it's a lot of very rocky switchbacks.
Yeah, and gravelly crap.
And a lot of them do have like side-by-sides and quad riders and stuff that are, I don't know, make me a little bit more nervous, especially the side-by-sides because I feel like they always just hurl down the mountain, especially around blind corners.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen more than one video too, like reels on Instagram and stuff of like, someone will be out on their bike having fun, taking up a dirt road, and a side-by-side will just run them off the road.
Yeah, they just don't have a...
so you're bad.
Good gauge. Good... They're not really like caring about which side of the road they're staying on and potentially having like
they're not riding right.
Side. Yeah. And but it was still a really cool film to watch.
Yeah, I would check it out. I would recommend checking it out.
I really want to. It made me want to go try and check out like at least a section of a Utah BDR. And there's one up just north of here. It's pretty close, so I think it'd be kind of cool to.
I think we should check it out.
Check it out. Maybe scout it with a car first, just to make sure we can actually ride it.
Yeah.
Or just send it and head up there.
Yeah. I will say one thing. Again, you should go watch it. It was really good. Go watch it.
I think, I don't think it's up there yet, but they put them up on YouTube later on. So yeah. My one thing that just caught all of our attention, the whole theater, not just us. We're not being picky, but like some of the riders were riding way too close together. There was more than one incident where another rider easily could have run over someone who dropped their bike. So if you guys do that kind of riding or even just street riding, just as we enter the riding season, I would just really like to say, just please like mind your distance with your friends. I do agree on that. Some of those shots, I was just like, it's a little uncomfortably close.
We're not even 5 minutes into the movie, and the whole theater is like, ooh.
Yeah. And another news, this is also adventure bike related. Honda did announce that they're releasing the updated 2024 version of the Africa Twin. For those of you that might not know, I mean, the Africa Twin is Honda's premier top-of-the-line adventure bike, and it's been in the biking scene for quite a while. But for the 2024 model year, so they have two versions of it. They have the Africa Twin and they have the Africa Twin Adventure Sport. The Adventure Sport is a more like touring-oriented, long-distance model. It has a larger fuel tank. It has, and then new for this year, they actually made the front wheel a 19-inch versus a 22-inch.
Okay.
And added some more additional like fairings and stuff like that to make it a little bit more stable on road, because that's the version that goes on road more.
Yeah.
Still has the extended fuel tank, and then on just a regular Africa Twin, it has now tubeless tires, which is very nice.
Yeah.
The regular one. Both are available with their DCT transmission as well.
I was going to ask you that actually.
Yeah. But then just the regular Africa Twin is more like the off-road oriented, because it does still keep the 21-inch front tire. And then the 18-inch rear, if I remember right. And also, if I remember correctly, I think they did end up bumping the power up just a little bit. So it pumps out a little bit more power. I got a chance to ride an Africa Twin before I bought my current bike. And I got to say, it was a great bike.
Yeah.
It has Apple CarPlay, so props to Honda for putting that on there.
They listen to us, obviously.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah, so.
But my biggest thing with them is they feel very top heavy and stuff. It was a little like... I wouldn't say like they don't feel as confidence inspiring because of that heavy top weight, especially at lower speeds. They
are a tall bike too.
They're a pretty tall bike, yeah. But I feel like other bikes kind of like my bike's tall too, but it does a better job of managing the weight and keeping it lower. But tech wise and stuff, I think they're great bikes. And also the Adventure Sport, I forgot to mention, still has the electronically adjusted suspension up front and in the rear, which is kind of nice. I think that's great for long distance touring bikes and stuff, while the regular Africa Twin just still maintains preload and dampening adjustment, but it's manual, so kind of like our bikes.
Yeah, I mean those Africa Twins though, they're beastie little bike, or not little, they're beastie bikes.
They are pretty beastie bikes, and I think they look good. And it's a Honda, so it's going to be very reliable.
Very.
And I did enjoy riding it, but it just wasn't quite the right fit for me. But yeah, so nice to see a little update in the bump and power, and I think like now they have like even a bigger separation between the two models of bikes. So that was the only bit of news that I got.
Yeah, no, that's good. And then I think lastly, as far as news goes, also ADV related, our friend just got his adventure bike.
Yeah.
Emerson, congratulations on your KTM Adventure 890.
Yeah. So
congrats to him.
Yeah. Congrats, shout out to Emerson. And
someone's going to join us on our rides.
And we all got Cardos.
So. Oh my gosh, those edges. Yeah. You guys made your difference.
Nice. So this is slightly off topic, but if you are a knee rider and you're trying to get comms for your helmet, get the Cardo, because everyone I've talked to that has a Senna seems to have issues with the Sennas.
Yeah.
This isn't a plug or anything. We're just talking from our own personal experience. I've had Cardos and I never had issues with them, but you and a few other
I've had two
friends had Sennas, and I feel like I hear a lot of complaints from you guys about
just something just doesn't seem to be between Sennas. A lot of times there's just not like a lot of they're not in rhythm with each other. It's like you're trying to do something and your timing has to be spot on, or I don't know entirely. But this is my first Cardo and I'm not going back.
Yeah. So it was really nice having all three of us like connected without even having to fiddle with any like long button presses or anything like that. Once we figured out like how to connect, it was just boom.
It's done. We turn them on and they'll connect now to each other when we're in vicinity. So
I highly recommend it.
Yeah. And with that, you can get those Cardos that we now have through our Revzilla affiliate link. If you use that, you can get same price, doesn't cost you anything extra, but it would give us a nice little kickback to help us grow and get some more equipment.
Yeah. So if you are shopping for a brand new comm system or any other gear, feel free to use that link. Or if you just want to help support the podcast without buying anything, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/tdtmotorcycles. And while it says buy me a coffee, we're going to use those funds to also help fund this podcast.
Indeed.
Should we jump into our main topic?
I think we should, yeah. So
okay, take it away.
Yeah, our main topic. What was it again? MotoGP.
Something about motorcycles.
Yeah, motorcycles. I don't know. Is that what we do here?
So we're going to talk about cars.
Yeah. Just kidding. So first getting into MotoGP, it's going to have to start with the first motorcycle, at least in production. So we're looking at way back in 1894, the first mass-produced motorcycle, the Hildebrand and Wolfmuller.
It's quite the name.
Quite the name, yeah. I'm sure it was a speed demon too. So from that date where we have like produced motorcycles, we're now reaching into 1907. The first ever Isle of Man TT took place. And this was like this was like the first official motorcycle race event.
Yeah.
It's from there. So,
and it's still going to this day.
It still goes to this day, and it's scary.
Yeah, it's very scary. If you've seen clips of it on YouTube, I don't know how those people do it. They gotta have the biggest balls in the world.
Yeah.
But you're driving down this it's not a race. It's not even a race.
It's a road.
It's
like a public road.
Towns. Yeah. On this narrow 2-lane road, hauling at I think that one of the top speeds at Isle of TT was like 176 miles an hour.
Oh my gosh.
On a road like that. That just makes my balls tuck in just thinking about it.
I would love to go watch one.
Oh yeah,
but I don't want to participate.
No, I'm good. I'll ride around it outside of the race. I'm sure it's a very pretty island.
I would love to go. Yeah. So,
but the race just looks absolutely terrifying.
Terrifying. Yeah.
Continue.
So that's kind of from our first ever official motorcycle race for that year. For the purposes of our topic, we're now just going to be skipping ahead into the 1940s, 1949. So we've had a history of motorcycles take place from, and I think we've mentioned a few of those histories before. So, but the FIM actually now they've put together a global motorcycle championship race. And this is where we're picking up into the unofficial birth of MotoGP.
Yep. So. And the first race was held Isle of Man.
Yeah.
So kind of keeping up the tradition and stuff.
It's a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah. And for those of you that are curious, the FIM stands for Fédération Internationale de Motorcyclisme, which I think is French.
Yeah. Thank you for tackling that because I didn't want to attempt to pronounce it. So
I'll give it my shot.
And so these races, they started out, they had 6 categories by engine capacity, starting at 50cc, 80cc, 125, 250, 350, and 500.
They also had a 600cc sidecar class.
Oh, they did.
Yeah.
Okay, 7 classes. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. I didn't put that in there. As these were starting out, these races were typically held on Italian or English bikes. They were, I guess in that time frame, they're still fast. They're not going to be anything like what we have now.
No.
But we have a champion holder. I forgot how to say his name because I looked up how to pronounce it. His nickname was like Ago.
Giacomo.
Giacomo Agostini.
Yep.
He was holding a record of 15 titles as the world champion for motorbike racing.
And he started off with the MV Agusta, which
Yes.
is a brand that's still around, and they sound amazing.
Yes, they do.
Bikes sound pretty good. And Britain's Leslie Graham became the first 500cc world championship rider on a British-built AJS machine. Wow. It was like one of the first basically early races. So
yeah,
it's kind of cool. I'm kind of noticing like a bit of a trend. It always seems I feel like a lot of these things start out in Europe.
Yeah,
especially like England and stuff. It's kind of cool because England just before we kind of started doing this, I never thought of them having this like very rich or lengthy motorcycle culture, like history and stuff. But there's a lot there.
There's a lot.
It seems a lot of it stems for primarily England, but also mostly Europe.
Yeah, well, I've kind of like had this thought too, because we've talked about motocross and Triumph and everything like that, and it's like there's birthplaces for motorcycle things and everything like that, but like it's because it's so ongoing, it's constantly evolving. Like it doesn't belong to one
absolutely
nationality, you know. So it's,
and as you'll see like later throughout this episode, this race expands from just being a very European centric thing to this global phenomena basically. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. But that was kind of our start from there. If you have something you wanted to mention throughout the history, because yours is way more cool than what I have. So.
But just to kind of wrap up like that early history. So outside in the 1960s, it also started expanding outside of Europe. So the first race in the U.S. was held in 1961 at the Daytona International Raceway, which is where a lot of NASCAR races held.
It's Indiana, right?
Yeah, in Indiana. And then they kind of skipped or stood back from U.S. for a while and then came back in the 80s at Laguna Seca in California. Okay. And I think what was interesting with like researching this is that the racetracks they use, they're not motorcycle-specific tracks because these are Grand Prix tracks that like Formula One uses and stuff or other races. So it was kind of cool to see that, there's not a specific motorcycle track.
Right.
They're just using tracks that are already built. There just happen to be racing bikes on them. Yeah. And we'll go over a little later in the episode about how these bikes are different to street bikes, and they're pretty gnarly.
It's a science, really. So
the bit that I really wanted to cover, and I kind of, in the research for this episode, I came across this interesting story about a guy named Ernst Degner. And Mr. Degner was a citizen of East Germany during the Cold War, and basically he was a fan of motorcycles, and he decided that he basically wanted to race them. And there was an East German motorcycle manufacturer called MZ, and they developed a two-stroke engine that produced a whopping 200 horsepower per liter. So it wasn't actually 200 horsepower, but if it became a liter engine, it would have 200 horsepower. Yeah. So just divide that up. However, the engine was developed by a guy named Walter Kaden, who was actually a scientist in Nazi Germany during World War II and helped engineer some of the components for V1 and V2 rockets. So him and Ernst Degner, they basically the Communist Party at the time basically like funneled a little bit of extra money into MZ to kind of create a race bike to go and compete at MotoGP. And it was funded by the Communist Party, so it wasn't really that big of an operation. But they, Walter Caden created a two-stroke engine that basically blew everyone else's engines out of the water. So they went out in this rinky-dinky, from this rinky-dinky little shop, rinky-dinky little operation to basically smoke any of the Italians, the Japanese manufacturers, anything like that.
Wow.
And this like commie bike from East Germany like smoked the competition.
That must have been embarrassing for the Western powers.
Probably. And so yeah, basically that's how it's kind of started out. And but this is where the story gets really even more interesting. So this guy went on to win a few titles and stuff, but he was kind of jealous of the Western counterparts and the Western teams having, lavish suits, proper trailers, just nicer things in general. So eventually he ended up defecting from East Germany. And this isn't really proven, or I couldn't really find any more info, but allegedly Suzuki was the ones that kind of helped him get out of East Germany because they wanted him on their team, but more importantly, they wanted the knowledge of how that engine is made. And because he was friends with the original designer, he kind of knew a lot of the workings and stuff of the engine.
I could see it now. It's just like Suzuki's like, we have a dream. We want to build fast bikes for people in cargo shorts and flip flops.
Yep. And so he ended up defecting from East Germany, and it was kind of, they had this plan hatched to kind of get him and his family out of East Germany so they wouldn't be like held hostage by the Communist Party, where he kind of trying to dip out after one of the races. So at first his family didn't quite make it out, but then during the second attempt they were able to get out, and then he basically defected and joined Suzuki's team. And Suzuki miraculously came out also with a two-stroke engine design that was
weird,
very, very pretty much a carbon copy of the MZ design that they had before. And that got Suzuki to win a bunch of championships, starting with their first one in 1962, using a 50cc two-stroke engine with pumping out 24 horsepower, basically propelled them. But the interesting thing is the design of these two-stroke engines basically set the standard for every two-stroke engine and the four-stroke engine that came after it. Basically, like the standard design for modern two-strokes stemmed from that MZ engine, which I thought was just really interesting.
That is
a really interesting.
Like, so thank you, communism?
Sort of, I guess. or Nazi German scientists.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't really want to say that. But yeah, so the dominance of that engine basically lasted for a while until Honda decided to respond with a four-stroke engine, which didn't quite pan out quite as well for them, but they did pump out. This is just an interesting bit that I wanted to share. And Honda came out with a four-stroke engine, multi-cylinder engine, to kind of try to compete with these two strokes. And one was a 50cc and the other was a 5-cylinder 125cc, and both revved beyond 20,000 RPM.
Jesus.
Which is just absolutely insane.
Wow.
For
I don't think I want anything moving that fast between my legs.
Yeah, that sounds a little like just a lot.
Yeah.
It's just a lot.
Wow.
But yeah, so that two-stroke engine, the original MZ engine, basically, eventually the similar designs came out from Yamaha, and Suzuki kept continuing to improve on kind of that design. And Degner kept racing for Suzuki. And but unfortunately, good things never last. Eventually, his life kind of just ended up falling apart because there was one engine that Suzuki had, and it was nicknamed the Whispering Death. It was a square 4-cylinder engine, and it was known for basically locking up, just seizing up and flinging people off the bike. Or just straight up stop, locking up.
That sounds like a career ender.
Yeah, and did get him, Degner, into a pretty bad accident where most of his face got burned and he had to get like 50 skin grafts on his face. And after that, he had another crash where he broke a lot of his bones. It was a similar accident and basically kind of got addicted to morphine. And then kind of his career pretty much ended from there. But the big thing from this story is that this engine set the standard for a lot of modern two-stroke engines that we still have today.
Yeah.
And it was just a very interesting story. There's a lot about it. I got it from motorcyclenews.com. They had a whole article about it. Him escaping to the West, him being jealous of the more lavish lifestyles of the Western race teams and everything like that.
Maybe we could even like post a link to that article when we post this episode, because it's a pretty cool story. I mean, this guy changed MotoGP with that engine. So yeah,
or at least sort of.
Yeah, I mean, he contributed.
He leaked it.
Yeah, he contributed greatly.
So that was a pretty interesting story that I thought was pretty funny. Or pretty fun read, pretty interesting read. He was very paranoid that after he defected that the Soviets would try to assassinate him, basically.
Reasonable fear back then.
Yeah, but they never did. Eventually, he ended up dying of a heart attack just later on. There has been conspiracies and speculation that it could have been something the Soviets done, but I feel like
maybe the Soviets seized his engines.
Maybe, but after that, his wife left him. Everyone just basically his whole life
not sad.
fell apart. 1981 is when he ended up passing away.
Yeah.
And the kind of like the more, I mean, that's a pretty sad ending, but also Walter Caden, he lived all the way up until 1997, but he never really got a big recognition for creating that original MZ engine. So it kind of just got swept under the rug and it was kind of there. But there was a quote from him that says, every time you build something good, someone steals it, which he said a few years before his death. And I have to accept it. I cannot change it. So a little bit of a sad end for the original creator of the engine. Yeah. But that's just the way things go sometimes.
I think that's the other side of the coin of innovation, right? Like you make something and
eventually
it's going to be improved upon or built on. You know? So,
but not only was this improved upon and built on just from learning that design, which it was, but the original design was basically stolen,
right?
And became by Suzuki because they built pretty much the exact same engine.
Yeah,
and so it's kind of sad that like reading that bit in the end that the guy never really got the recognition for creating that kind of engine, but it's a cutthroat, a little bit of a cutthroat thing, especially back then.
No, for sure. It's unfortunate, but
I really just got excited about trying to share that little story because it was a pretty interesting story about
for sure
two people that I never knew even existed until this very moment.
We researched the same topic and I didn't find any of that, so that's really cool you came across that.
So would you like to have more to add, or I have some more stuff from between the 60s and 80s?
Okay, I my next notes are going to lead into the 80s and above, so if you want to continue with those, then
in the 1960s, Giacomo Agostini continued to win and win and win. He won 4 of his 8 titles in the 500cc world titles, and then 2 out of the 8 350cc titles. But basically, Italian bikes dominated the entire MotoGP.
These were the years where the pedigree was really building for them.
But in 1966, Honda became the first Japanese manufacturer to win the 500cc class. So that was a big upset for the Italians and the Europeans. However, in 1967, FIM decided to do a little bit of cost cutting. They wanted to kind of rein in the cost of manufacturing these bikes. Yeah. Which and those changes, basically, Honda, Yamaha, and Suzuki, they didn't want to make those changes. At least the way I understood it for the 500cc class specifically. So they left the GP, and MV Agusta came back to dominate the 500cc class once more. Yamaha later returned to the scene and had Agostini riding on the Yamaha bike and winning the 500cc championship in 1975.
That must have been an awkward reunion.
Yeah. And then
but wow.
later Suzuki came back as well in 1976 and won, and that win was taken by Barry Sheen, and this basically set off a wave of Japanese dominance in MotoGP that continued up until like the 2000s, basically. Yeah. So the Japanese came back strong, and their riders and their bikes continued to dominate this field. Honda came back in 1979, and instead of using 2-stroke engines, they decided to use 4-stroke engines. However, their 4-strokes didn't quite compete well with Yamaha and Suzuki's 2-strokes.
Okay.
And then in the 1980s, the GP saw started to be dominated by Australian and American riders, with Kenny Roberts leading the way for the Americans in 1978, and then 1979 and 1980 World Championships on the Yamaha. And then 1987 saw the Australian take the title with Wade Gardner, which was later reclaimed by America thanks to Eddie Lawson and Wayne Rainey.
Wow.
So it was pretty interesting just to read about how the Europeans and the European riders and Japanese bikes basically dominating it so long.
Yeah.
And then Americans kind of came a little late to the party, which tracks.
It's interesting because, like, you know, from what I knew about motorcycle history from like that time period, like, you know, 70s and the 80s, like, you know, everyone, they wanted a Japanese bike because they were like fast road bikes, you know, but now we're seeing like how they kind of brought that in through their races and everything like that, you know, showing off what they can do.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. So, leading into the 80s, that's where my notes pick back up from there. We're looking at 1983. They removed the 350cc class from the events. So 350s were out, and then the next year, the 50cc class was removed. And that continued on into the 90s, where they started making even more changes. They then took out the 80cc and then the sidecar classes. And then, from there, like up until 2001, the race only had the 125, 250, and 500cc classes from there. So
I wonder, I didn't look into the reason why they removed certain classes, but I'm wondering.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was wondering it's because, like, at that point, the smaller engines has become like way too, not necessarily complicated, but way too just like unnecessary, because you get so much power and the engines just keep getting bigger and bigger. So then at that point, it's like, well, what's the point of even keeping like a little 50cc bike around?
That's what I was thinking. It's like, it must have been just like, because now we're getting into like, faster bikes, and like, maybe engine capacity is not changing, but bikes are getting faster. And so it's eventually with these smaller classes, it was just becoming like a putt-putt around, around a track.
That's what I'm thinking too.
So maybe just not as, intense that people kind of associate with MotoGP.
Yeah. And then, in 2002, that's when the actual MotoGP name came about.
Replaced the 500cc class.
They replaced the 500cc class, and they bumped up the maximum power to 990 cc's, which is a pretty significant jump in power.
A little bit.
Yeah.
It was also during the 2002s. I have in here, it's now they're calling it the MotoGP, so it's new branding, so that they're actually started introducing newer regulations. Like you said, there are 4-stroke engines with a maximum of 990cc for the top class. And in the final year of the 500cc motorbike world championship, this is when we actually see somebody who probably a lot of motorcyclists know this name, is Valentino Rossi, the doctor. He was now crowned the world champion, and this is kind of known as the Rossi years, starting out from this point. And throughout that 2002 to 2005, 4 world championships on Honda and Yamaha.
Claimed by Rossi.
By Rossi, yes, thank you. So it's so Rossi is like a nameplate, or what's the word I need? He's synonymous with MotoGP at this point. And Rossi, he shares the title of lead for the list of best riders, along with Marc Marquez, another name we know.
Yep, was a Spanish rider.
Yep. And each of them holding 6 world championship titles in GP.
Pretty awesome.
They're wild. I've seen clips of them racing and just.
I think it'd be cool to maybe do a little bit more research on Rossi. And
I think so.
Potentially in the future, just kind of try and do.
He owns a team now.
Does he?
Yeah.
Okay.
From what I was gathering, he's still very much involved in MotoGP.
Cool.
So.
Some of the other tidbits I have for the 2000s. So in 2007, they further tweaked the regulations, and the capacity of the bikes was lowered to 800 cc, during which Ducati broke the Japanese dominance in the race with Australia's Casey Stoner taking the title. So, Japanese dominance ended. Ducati was back on top. And then in 2012, the bikes were bumped back up to 1,000 cc, during which the Spanish dominated the GP with Jorge Lorenzo and Marc Marquez.
Yep.
And then just one last little tidbit. The current MotoGP bikes produce an estimate of 260 to 300 horsepower, which is just absolutely insane.
It's not, I mean, even like that Speed Triple RR, what is that horsepower at? It's like
the Speed Triple RR?
Yeah.
178.
Yeah. So these are just, that's already nuts for a road bike.
Yeah.
Like, so this is
absolutely insane.
This is just insane.
Yep. And then MotoGP, kind of similar to like Formula One, if you're follow that. There's Formula One, Formula 2, and then Formula E. MotoGP does also have, there's MotoGP, Moto2, and Moto3, and then you had some of the differences between.
Yeah, so like if you're like us and you know nothing about this, and this is new to you, so you start out with Moto3. This is where like a lot of new riders will come and kind of try and make their name. This is where if they can qualify in this, they'll be racing on 250cc bikes. And I mean, these things, like, okay, people think like, oh, that's a small bike, right?
Not when it comes to racing.
I mean, these things can go from 0 to 100 kilometers in 3 seconds, but to qualify, they need to hit 2.6.
That is fast.
Fast,
That is crazy fast.
So, okay, a little bike, but no, not really.
Also, 100 kilometers an hour is 60 miles an hour for those using Freedom units.
Yeah, you just got to move Freedom units. Yeah. So that's Moto3. That's like your base entry getting into it. And, it's not basic in any means. You got to be good.
Okay.
So then you can step into Moto2. And all the bikes on here, they're all going to be using the Triumph 765 engines. Thank you. So those are just awesome bikes.
Just a little Triumph.
Awesome engines. Yeah. They're going to be racing anywhere from like 200 kilometers an hour. They are allowed to only use steel disc brakes. They can't have like the other kind in there. And this is what really shocked me about Moto2. There's a minimum age requirement of 16.
To me, that's wild. That's before even driver's licenses in most countries.
I lived wrong. I was already shocked. Like a little bit about, here's like just a tiny bit big into my backstory. I took flight lessons for a while.
Yeah.
And it's the same in the US. Your minimum age is like 16 to get your license. So so we're letting people like fly planes and race these like crazy bikes. Yeah, 16. So I grew up wrong, I guess. So, but if you can make it here, that can then become your stepping stone into the MotoGP Global Tour. MotoGP, these are like the high end, super fast machines that we're talking about. You're going to be hitting top speeds. They've clocked some top speeds as fast as like 356.7 kilometers per hour. Easily, you're well above in the 200 plus kilometers an hour speeds. And these are on the 1000 cc bikes.
Yeah.
It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts.
That's just crazy to me. Just the amount of power literally sitting between your legs on those bikes. And if you've seen the clips on YouTube, like these bikes are loud, they're screaming, and
well above 1,000 decibels.
Yeah, those guys are moving very, very fast. And just real quick, since we're talking about the bikes, I wanted to go over like the kind of the main differences between MotoGP and street bikes. I mean, the principle between the bike is the same, whether it's on the road, on dirt, or on a racetrack. It's still got 2 wheels. It's got handlebars. You counter steer it to lean into it and everything like that. Bike's a bike.
Yeah, easily.
The engines that the MotoGP bikes have conceptually they're pretty much the same as any road engine. They're made in the same way, they're powered the same in a similar fashion, so they're just much bigger and very precisely tuned for maximum performance and maximum racing. But the interesting is they don't have starter motors, they don't have kickstands, lights, any electronic assist, basically traction control, ABS. All of that is either turned off or minimized to a certain degree, and
they're specifically
very bare
built.
bone. They're race bikes, just like a race car is built specifically for a race. These bikes are built specifically for racing.
Your Ninja cannot compete with these bikes. I'm sorry.
No, it will not. But their engines and their suspension conceptually basically the same as a street bike, just using for suspension using lighter components to save on weight, and then for the engine using much more powerful tunes and everything like that. For the body, MotoGP bikes utilize a lot of carbon fiber for both the fairings, but also it was interesting because they use the fiber for also the frame and the swing arm,
which I thought was interesting. Yeah.
I mean, everything like our both bikes just have steel, like swing arms and stuff, or maybe aluminum. I think it's steel. But,
sure.
Yeah. It's metal.
Yeah. Heavy things.
Like, just having like carbon fiber on those like high stress environments and stuff. It's like that's pretty cool, and I'm sure that saves a significant amount of
a lot of weight. Costs a lot more money.
And one of the other big differences is that they have what's called a seamless gearbox. So there is a very small amount of time between when they're shifting gears, where the bikes actually has both the gears engaged. So if you're like in first gear and you upshift, first and second gear are both engaged, and then so on, which provides a much smoother shifting experience and also much more linear acceleration, so you can get those top speeds much faster. And then also in MotoGP, the brakes are primarily created are made out of carbon, so they're carbon brakes, and the carbon brakes they're much more effective at higher temperatures, and they also are basically much better at higher temperatures. So they got to keep those brakes warm, which probably shouldn't be too hard when you're trying to slow down from 200 kilometers an hour to take a corner. Yeah. And also, just like with any race or specialized thing, the tires are they're currently made by Michelin, but they're specifically created for MotoGP. They're very slick racing tires that no tread on them, that also perform much better. The hotter they are, the better they perform. Yeah,
and if you see it, I mean, even if you just go to like a regular track day, wherever you are, like you'll see like a lot of people, they have like the tire warmers. Yeah. Because that's what they're made for. Those tires, they're designed to be hot. Yeah. To work.
So. Basically, run at higher speeds or higher temperatures and be able to handle the high friction. Speed and the stress that those bikes get put under. That's pretty much the main differences. But I mean, a bike's still a bike. It's just these are very specialized, highly tuned, high performance bikes. Yeah, that not even your Hayabusa will be able to outrun.
And that's just really it. Is like one, they're not street legal.
No, they don't have any lights on them. They don't have blinkers. They have a rain light. That was the only thing.
What are you gonna do when you're done? There's no kickstand.
There's no kickstand.
No, they so it was cool to see like there is like a difference, but they're the same machines. Yeah, it's just so it's pretty sweet to see, which it really opened my eyes a little bit too, because I was like, because we know people who go to the track and stuff, and have track bikes, so they build them out to be track bikes, but like essentially they're still a road bike.
They're still a road bike. You can still ride it on the street unless you completely strip everything off of it. Yeah, this is a whole other level of motorcycling, and not to mention like they have the bikes, but then like the suits they wear. That's basically where all the major technologies for motorcycling come through. Like FIM, they're still around, and they're the ones that regulate the MotoGP for. They certify the helmets for them, and I think and those certifications that kind of trickle down to the consumer level, like EC if you're in Europe, DOT if you're in the US, which we all know is kind of trash.
It means nothing. Yeah. DOT means nothing for your safety.
Snell used to be kind of like the big standard too, but Snell also does a lot of car racing, and some of their things don't really translate over to motorcycle helmets as well. Fortnite had a really good video explaining that, but England's got their own like Sharp standard as well. So all of them have their own certification, but FIM regulates the stuff specifically for MotoGP conditions. And you can buy film certified helmets in real life. They're pretty expensive, but they basically do the testing on them to make sure that the head stays put and doesn't get twisted up. Plus, then they wear those full like cowhide racing suits.
Well, and they have like
fire
the hump
retardant
on
suit.
the back
They
of
have
their
the big
suit too.
back protector. They have airbags in the suits built in, so as soon as there's a crash detected, the whole airbag just inflates, and that has helped to reduce an amount of injuries, because we've seen the clips. I'm sure you have as well. Those MotoGP crashes where these guys are just flailing around like rag dolls, just sliding for like several, like 30 yards just down that pavement and stuff. And it's kind of scary to watch, but a lot of times you kind of see them get up and walk away. I'm sure they still are in pain, but they're not dead.
Yeah, and
instantly.
Yeah, and that says a lot about the technology we have, and we have like the bikes that you went over, and like the suits and the helmets and everything like that. But like that's just like one part of the recipe. It's like these riders, they are in peak physical condition, physically and mentally.
Yeah.
I would imagine there's like a form of training for how to fall.
Oh, 100%.
If you can, but at the same time, you're going so fast, like you're you're insignificant to the forces of nature.
Yeah.
It's it just goes to show it's combining like, peak physical and mental condition, and with all this amazing technology, that's how we get something as insane as MotoGP.
And it's cool because that technology eventually trickles down to consumer level gear, like airbags. We don't really have like too many options for motorcycle like airbag vests, just even like a few years ago, really. But now it seems like every year there's more and more of them popping out from bigger and bigger brands. Like Alpine Star's got one. Climb, I think, has one.
You can pick them up at Cycle Gear.
Yeah. You can buy them on Revzilla using our affiliate link if you're really curious. But yeah, and those airbags, like, tests show that, I mean, sure, they might look a little nerdy or goofy if you're wearing them, but they significantly improve the impact protection compared to just even armor panels on your regular riding gear. And
can you imagine someone making fun of you for wearing an airbag? It's like, oh, look at that guy. He's going to live.
He's going to live. He's not gonna be paralyzed because his spine hit the pavement So I think it's awesome to see this safety technology like trickling down to consumer grade stuff, things like neck braces and even stricter helmet certifications and things like that. It's all in the name of safety, so we can enjoy watching the sport, but also stay safe when we ride ourselves. And I'm all for that.
No, me too. So once again, this is going to be starting March 10th, going up until November. If you're curious, if you don't know, our 2023 results, we'll just give you the top three. First place is Francesco Bagnaia. I'm so sorry. I really need to be better about pronunciation. But he was riding for the Ducati team on a Ducati bike. Fun fact, before I list our other winners, our second and third place winners, Francesco, he clocked the first ever sub 1 minute and 51 second lap in the Qatar Grand Prix venue, coming in at 1 minute and 50 seconds, 0.952 seconds. Yeah. So just barely under there from there, but that's big. That's the first ever sub 1 minute 51 second, and this was at the Losail International Circuit, and this was just happened in February.
Wow!
So sounds like he's onto something. Being a first place winner and then clocking from there. And then our second place winner, we have Jorge Martin racing for Pramac Racing on a Ducati bike. Are you seeing a theme here?
No.
And then our third place winner, Marco Basecchi, racing for VR46, also on a Ducati bike. So
Ducati seems to be doing something right. This year's MotoGP.
Yeah. So congratulations to them. I mean, these guys have proved themselves to be the best riders in the world.
I mean, if you're running that, you can probably claim that title.
Yeah.
And hold on to it.
Yeah.
At least on road, maybe.
And that just goes to show, even, for everyday riders like us, you can come in dead last if you want in MotoGP. You're going to be, you're a fantastic world claimed rider.
Yeah. You're going to be better rider than most of the people that ride
like
on the
99%
streets.
of the population that rides.
If you can ride around those tracks without it's crazy. It's the world of racing just in general, whether it's motorcycles or cars and stuff. It's just crazy, not only complex, but also it's like full of a pretty rich history and stuff behind it. How it went, and it's fun to kind of like listen to how they started from these small little operations where a group of people just come together and just build these like worldwide events with the
I love that
latest
theme.
Technologies and stuff.
Yeah. Well,
being proven.
Yeah. I love the theme of just like with motorcycles or history, you know, you have like cafe racing. It just started because some people wanted to go to coffee shops and go as fast as they could to get there. Motocross, everything else we have, you know, and like it's even our riding groups, your riding groups, you guys probably all met because you just like, we want to ride.
We just want to ride together.
Yeah. So it's a continuing thing with it throughout motorcycles.
Yeah. And that's why we love them, and that's why we ride.
Yeah. So,
but anyways, I think that's pretty much covers the topic.
Yeah, that's all I really have. I mean,
that's
the last thing I just want to say is like no promises, but I'm going to be looking into maybe going to Texas in April just because those tickets aren't bad. If I could find a good way to get down there, I might be there. I don't know if you can maybe make it work.
I don't think I'll be able to make it. Yeah. But
I don't think so either for myself, but I'm going to look. So, and if you're in the area or if you need a quick weekend vacation,
if you live down there planning on attending MotoGP, whether it's in US or in other countries, if you're listening from there, like feel free to let us know how that went for you, because I'm very curious.
No, same. So very cool history that we got to go over from there.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you guys so much for listening and or watching. And that's the end of the episode.
Yeah. So we'll catch you later.
Thank you again. Have a good day.